Hi, my name is Wendy.
And I'm Jeff.
And
we're the Vacation Addicts. A little bit of background about Wendy and I. We've been together about 3 years and both recently retired and decided it was time to start traveling and see the world.
Do what we love to do. So we've made it a career. We're now professional tourists.
We design our trips around an event or something that we want to see or an adventure that we want to do, and then research the area and turn every little 2 or 3 day event into a 3-week vacation.
And see as much as we can see, being in as many places as we can be in that amount of time, but still have enough time to get to know a culture. So stay for at least a week per country, sometimes 3 weeks per country. We've got a few of those coming up. We just did a couple of them this winter.
Well, we've been running for the last several years, and we try to give recommendations on all the best food, top 5 of all the best activities. We'll, for instance, think it'll be fun to go to an F1 race, so we plan that around a trip to Italy, or plan a trip to Italy around an F1 race, and next thing you know, we're touring the Amalfi Coast and Pompeii, Venice, Lake Como, then race some cars, some Ferraris and Lamborghinis through Modena, then head up to Switzerland, and all because of an F1 race. So,
right.
And we've considered ourselves pretty good at what we've done so far. I think we're killing it. So we want to be able to share all of our adventures with everyone and tell you all how to...
Places where you just can't go wrong visiting.
Tell you how to get there and people we meet.
What to expect. Where to find the good food.
So many of you have already seen our clips on St. Croix, and about 4 days after we got back from St. Croix, we got up and left for a quick weekend in Alaska.
We went to see the Iditarod. Did 2 starts. It actually has 2 starts. One is a ceremonial start in Anchorage. Second is the real official start in Willow, Alaska, out on top of a frozen lake. And it's the beginning of an 1,100-mile dog sled race.
Wendy, being the history major, makes sure that we get plenty of time learning all the history of the local area, hitting museums and that sort of thing. So this was the 51st running of the race, and it all started with trying to get vaccines to an area just around Nome to try to stop diphtheria.
Yeah.
And so they do a ceremonial race every year. It's considered the last greatest race on Earth. Yeah. It takes about 9 days from start to finish for the 1,100-mile journey. The majority of contestants are experienced mushers, and they live, a lot of them, a very basic subsistence lifestyle up in Alaska, or some of them are from the Scandinavian area. They're used to those conditions. We had just gotten back from St. Croix. We had great tans, and we were not acclimated to Cincinnati weather, let alone Alaskan weather, but we did it. We dressed warm. Yep. And had a great time. So on Saturday morning, they do the ceremonial start within the streets of Anchorage. Everyone's lining the streets from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. The dog teams of 12 dogs and 1 musher race through the city streets and warm up their dogs with a 90 mile or so run up to Willow, where they camp for the night and come back out the next morning. And there's Anchorage is a very small town. It took us by surprise, but it's surrounded by beautiful mountains. Of course, there was plenty of snow the first weekend of March. Some great local restaurants, some breweries.
There was the Anchorage Museum, which was fascinating, natural history museum.
And that's only a couple-minute walk anywhere you are down in Anchorage. And they had displays of, all the different Native Americans that have lived in Alaska over the centuries. And of course, some nice fossils and those sorts of things that you'd find in a natural history museum.
Oh yeah, and the history of the Yukon Wild West stories, the Jack London era. It's an excellent place to visit. We were there, unfortunately, not at a time when you were able to see the northern lights down that far south. Best place, we're told, is to go up to Fairbanks, which is another couple hours north, and it's much less populated. So if you want to see the northern lights, you may want to head from Anchorage up north.
Then, of course, there's all kinds of activities during the start of the race. So they've got food trucks and festivals and
Ice
fairs
sculptures
going on. And then they had an ice sculpture competition where they had blocks of ice that were about 10 foot tall by 10 foot wide, and had them on display. And if you watch our video, you'll see, quite a few of the ice sculptures there that we were checking out. And then
we had dinner at a place called 49th State, because Alaska was the 49th state to the Union, and it was a brewery. Great place, fireplaces, cozy, warm, definite wilderness kind of a feel to it, though. You could get yak burgers and bison burgers. Yeah, interesting, eclectic menu.
For sure. Anyway, the next day for the start of the race was in Willow, about an hour and a half drive north. And we had some friends with us, and rather than trying to fight the crowds in the parking, we were able to go to Alpha helicopter tours and rent a helicopter for the afternoon. And it flew us about 20 minutes instead of a couple hour drive. It took us 20 minutes to get to Willow, where we landed on the lake right at the starting line of the race, and hung out, bought a bunch of Girl Scout cookies right there on the frozen lake, and watched the official start of the race.
Yeah, and then we flew up again in the helicopter, watched the dogs' sleds from the sky, and you can see some of our video.
We caught them as they were going probably another 50 miles away by then, and we were out in the wilderness, and people lined up all over the place for miles and miles and miles to watch them. And we were able to catch a rare glimpse. So 150, 160 miles away from Anchorage is Mount Denali, which is the largest mountain in the U.S., I believe. And they say only 1/3 of the people that come to Alaska get to see it, because the mountain's so large it has its own weather pattern, and it's usually hidden by clouds and that sort of thing. So that was really interesting. And then after chasing the dogs, our pilot took us up into the mountains, where we flew around the mountains looking for bear tracks. We did see a handful of moose and glaciers.
Oh, and the glaciers and the mountain peaks flying right over them, just 50 feet, 100 feet above.
Many of the glaciers are still expanding. A lot of people think all the glaciers are receding, but there's quite a few up there that are still expanding, and over 100,000 glaciers in Alaska. And our pilot was able to come down and land us right next to some glaciers for some photo ops, and right next to a frozen waterfall, which was just absolutely gorgeous. The ice is a bright blue colored ice because of all the pressure squeezing all the air out of the ice.
It's just a big prism of blue.
Then we were getting low on gas. Figured there's no way up here to get gas to a helicopter, but there's a 2-minute flight between mountains, and we landed at a helicopter gas station.
More or less, a rest stop on top of a mountain. They had a restaurant and bar, and then they had just built some cabins that weren't ready to be occupied yet, so that's something to do. You want to go out on a helicopter tour and spend the night at the top of the mountain.
By then, it was the end of the day and pretty much the end of our trip. We had to get up early in the morning and fly back, so we flew in on a Friday and flew out early Monday morning. But had an experience of a lifetime. Can't wait to go back when it's a little warmer.
Yeah, go check it out.
Very different when all the snow's melted and
you have midnight sun.
And you have midnight sun all day long. So
we'll be heading back there again in the next year or two, perhaps.
Yeah. So if you go to our website, we'll probably have some details of where we ate, what we did, how we got there, how to get a hold of the helicopter tours, and check it out for yourself.
Next trip after we went to Alaska was
about 5 days later.
Yep, enough time for me to run back to Indianapolis, get a crown on my tooth and jump on a plane, and we flew to Washington, D.C.
Well, the only reason we scheduled this trip was because we had some family things that we had to take care of down in the Virginia Beach area. And my brother, my sister, and some family were all going to come down there and celebrate some things. And we thought, well, if we're going to go to Virginia Beach, why not start things off with a quick week in D.C. and go do our little American history national tour.
Yeah, so we did colonial and Revolutionary War history trip with plenty of plaques and museums. The Smithsonian would take probably months to ever see all of the. We did manage to see most of them. We did some highlights. And everywhere we go, we realize that all we're doing is hitting highlights at some of these places and kind of getting a feel for how much time we need to set aside for our next trip. So we started this one off the day after arriving with, first I think we went to the Natural History Museum, Smithsonian National History. Air and Space.
We went to the National Air and Space Museum. And that was really cool. A lot of Wright brothers exhibits and histories all the way up to rockets. Mars rovers and rockets and the whole airline industry. And shoot, it was endless. They even had an X-Wing fighter in there and the USS Enterprise. So there's a little bit of everything for everybody and maybe where we're going next. So after that, we hit the National History Museum, which of course is fun. Mammals, fish, dinosaurs, you know.
I think they had mummies in that one too.
They did. Yeah. And the Hope Diamond, which was really neat to see the Hope Diamond. And in that Hope Diamond area, they have those halls and halls of crystals that are anywhere from small crystals to 10 feet tall crystals. And absolutely gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous.
And dinosaurs, and see all of the natural history artifacts. And
And that first day, I think we had dinner after all the tours at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, which is always fun. So we had a great dinner at Ruth's Chris. Got up early the next morning and started off at the National Museum of American History, which went all the way back pre-Civil War days and then post-Civil War days. I mean, it just kept on going.
A lot of the Native American period.
We got to see Abraham Lincoln's hat was in there. A lot of tintype photos. Little areas that were all set up, like the barracks and tents that they used in the Civil War. A lot of George Washington, Thomas Jefferson memorabilia. We did go to the National Archives, which was really cool. Declaration of Independence and Constitution, Bill of Rights. So all of that was there. Then we hit we walked by the White House, had lunch at the Hamilton restaurant, which was really nice. Excellent. It's right down there. A lot of congressmen and people like that, hobnobs of DC, go down there and eat and stuff. And at the American History Museum, one of the things that was really cool was the gunboat, the Philadelphia, and they had sunk out there in, I think, DC area, and had been resurrected and refurbished all the way down to the cannonball that sunk it, the hole in the side of the boat, and it's all located right there. It
had been well preserved in the mud there.
It had been,
the swampy area.
And then after that, we did some more walking around, checking out the town, and had dinner, after dinner drinks at this place called Opaline. For drinks, and we had a mixologist named Marlowe's.
It was a lot of fun. Entertaining.
Very
some
entertaining.
Great drinks that we'd never tried before.
Told him what main ingredient. I'm a bourbon guy. Wendy likes gin. Mostly beer, but sometimes gin. And we just let him make several different signature cocktails for us, which was a lot of fun. And the next day 3 there.
That was the Library of Congress tour.
Yeah, we actually went on a tour that our concierge was able to put together for us. And one of the nice things about DC is all these museums are 100% free. So it costs nothing to go to any of these Smithsonians, and there's several of them, to go to any of the memorials, like memorials and things like that.
Or Capitol tour or White House, but you do need to work with your congressman or your senator if you want to see inside the Capitol when it's in session, or if you want a tour of the White House. And give yourself 3 to 6 months to get that worked out. So that's not something you can just show up and get a tour of.
Right, but you can get into the Capitol. You just can't get into the chambers and see them actually working in there. But the concierge was able to get us on a very small group tour bus or van that made stops all over the city. We started off at the Capitol, got to skip the line and go right in front of everybody else with our tickets with the group. Had tour guides explaining things to us while we were in there. After that, we took a short walk down to Lafayette Square and the White House. And the White House we were able to see from a couple different views. And when we were at dinner at the evening that we're getting ready to talk about, we actually had dinner at a place called The View over top of the Hotel Washington. And it's right across the street from the White House. And while we were having dinner, the president's helicopter came in, landed at the front door of the White House. And it was really fun to get to see that.
Yeah.
So then this tour ended up taking us to several of the memorials. We saw the Vietnam Memorial, Korean Memorial, Iwo Jima, or the Marine Memorial.
Franklin Roosevelt.
World War II. Then on to the Lincoln Memorial.
And Jefferson
Memorial. And
Arlington National Cemetery.
Very busy day. But we got information on where we were going while we were on the bus or on the van. And then when we got there, we had 20 minutes to walk around, check it all out for ourselves. And just a beautiful day. We were hoping to catch all the cherry blossoms in bloom.
But we were there a week too early.
Yeah, the dogwoods were out. Cherry blossoms actually popped the week after we left.
Yeah, so then we also saw the National Archives and Library of Congress was the following day, wasn't it?
That was the end of that day. Yeah, and the Library of Congress was really neat because you can see every book that's ever been printed. Pretty much. Thomas Jefferson's library is in their personal library. You can actually get your own library card to the Library of Congress. So you can get in the reading rooms and get books off the shelves, and you can look at things that were printed in the 1200s there. Yeah. We actually saw one of the original Gutenberg Bibles.
Yeah.
So that was really neat.
Saw a copy of the Mayflower Compact.
Yeah, that was neat.
That was fascinating. It was just in a display with a lot of other historical documents, but the magnitude of that one particular document was...
Well, what does that document say? Tell everybody else.
That's the group of investors who were on the Mayflower when it landed and set up the first settlements here in the U.S. And it was all an economic endeavor. And it was more or less their contract or their agreement on how they were going to run it.
How they're going to conduct business and begin the new world. So they were all from England and Spain and...
No, just the Mayflower was England.
Just England. Okay, there you go.
Yep. An English colony established by King James by those on the Mayflower.
Then the next day, we ended up having lunch at the Captain Grill, which was very
excellent.
Good. The lobster salad was awesome.
Yeah, I think we got a picture of that.
And then we went back to the Natural History Museum to catch some of the stuff that we weren't able to do the first day because it was just too busy. And ended up then at the National Gallery of Art. Got there just about a half hour before they closed, but
so much to see there.
They have the only
Da Vinci
in the United States is on display there.
We did not get to see it.
Yeah, no, we missed that. We couldn't find it. We were only there for half an hour.
All right.
Got rushed out of there.
Leave at least a day for each museum, and that's only going to give you the highlights. And if you ever wanted to, you could even request special tours through different tour operators. And look online if you know you're gonna be in Washington D.C. 3 months from now. See what special exhibits they got going on, so you know you can go at the right time. See the best of what they got to offer.
A lot of places, although they're free, they do require timed entry passes. So you have to get online, and we'll give you all those links, and then you can get in there and pick your date and what time you want to go in. Show up about 10 minutes before that, and you can go in from that point on for the rest of the day.
Right.
So now there's a few places just outside of DC that are definitely worth seeing if you're going to be over there. As I said earlier, we're going down to Virginia Beach to do some things with the family. And Wendy also has some family down in the Virginia Beach area. Shout out to Brandon, Shay, Mark. Had a great time with them. But we took a couple days to run up to Williamsburg.
Mm-hmm.
Spent an afternoon there, which was that our first capital? Capital of Virginia.
Yes.
I think it's the first capital of Virginia. And everything is resurrected, rebuilt, however you want to say, to be as if it was in the period.
Mm-hmm.
And there are people that work there that are dressed in period clothing, and they're to answer any questions you may have, show you around their establishments, whether it be an armory or the governor's house or the doctor's house, attorneys, jewelry stores, tin makers, silversmiths, demonstrations, live fire musket demonstrations, a lot of stuff, and you can spend an entire day there. Sure. There's actually, although we didn't stay there, there is a nice resort right there in Colonial Williamsburg where you can stay.
It looks worthy of checking out.
And it's definitely something that I think we should leave a link for people out.
Yeah.
Then on another day, we went to Jamestown, which was the very first settlement, right, in the United States.
Right.
And that was really neat. It's set up with a lot of original stuff and a lot of reenactment things. Again, people in costume. These things did cost a few dollars for park entry, but I think it was relatively inexpensive, and your pass was good for the whole week. We actually bought they call it the Golden Triangle.
Yeah, where you can get into Jamestown, Williamsburg,
and Yorktown. And once you get into Williamsburg, which is the first one, you pick up your passes, and they're good for the whole week. And you can go back and forth between all three of these settlements.
Mm-hmm. No time limits.
So yeah, Jamestown was really neat. They had a small museum at the very beginning of it. When you could go by, you can walk through that, then go back to the boats where the people actually came in on that are there. You can see the fort. Inside the fort is very interactive, again, with live fire demonstrations, blacksmiths working, carpenters, people working at the armory and stuff like that.
There was an Indian camp with a reenactor who was an Indian who was actually
cooking a deer leg and some turkey from something he shot with his own homemade bow and arrow.
Yeah.
Living the lifestyle, so to speak, not just on display there, but actually getting his own meat and doing it for real. And then Yorktown was another town there that was very influential in both wars, the Civil War and the Revolutionary War. But victory there, with the help of the French, really helped decide the end of the war and pull up the Revolutionary War and pull us back into the stronghold. And we were able to defeat the British there, so they couldn't get a stronghold in the area anymore. And when you're in Yorktown, you can tour the battlegrounds.
Right.
And you can go to the spot where the British actually surrendered, and everything is still as it was. The bunkers in the ground that they dug out. Right. Very, very hands-on, very interactive.
And you can see where the South reused the fortifications from the Revolutionary War in their
Civil War.
In the Civil War. They just recycled the same old fortifications.
They sure did. And that was, we thought was going to be the end of our Virginia trip, our historical tour. But as luck would have it, our flight was delayed getting out. We weren't going to be able to make a connection. So we thought, well, let's just take a nice leisurely drive home. And instead of flying home, take 2 days to do it.
And we got to stop at Monticello on the way and see Thomas Jefferson's home. And we only got to see what we could in about 90 minutes or less. We didn't get there early enough in the day. That's an all-day tour, definitely to take, because it was a working plantation, and that was
still is
Jefferson's enterprise. And you can see how his management of his plantation pretty much was lens he was looking through as he's drafting the Declaration of Independence and such.
Yeah, he was struggling with a lot of things during that time, trying to decide all men will be created equal, yet still have slavery going on at the time. And that was a real struggle of his. But his plantation, they would make their own nails, cut their own wood.
And they exported
things. They have these vegetable gardens that were just absolutely unbelievable with seeds that he brought over from Europe. And those same seeds and genetics are in the vegetables and plants he's growing there today. And people can go there and actually obtain some of these seeds through workshops, and you can actually grow
workshops there.
You can actually grow at your home genetically the same seeds that came from Thomas Jefferson. So that was really neat. And his plantation was just set up with everything you can imagine from blacks. I think they had 300 people working on that plantation at the time, between the house and the fields and everything else they had going there. Absolutely gorgeous. And on the way home, we learned one other small piece of information was as you're driving 64 into West Virginia, there's an old tunnel that the road used to go through a mountain at, and they've replaced that tunnel with a couple bridges to connect the mountains and get a little shorter distance. But that tunnel has been purchased by a company who is using it as a mushroom farm.
Right. It's called the Memorial Tunnel.
And it's
near Clarksville.
Constant temperature, being underground, ventilation's already there. And so many of the mushrooms you all are going to be eating over the next several years just maybe coming from the Memorial Tunnel in West Virginia.
Right.
And that was it for Virginia. Quick trip.
Yeah, so now we're gearing up to head out again tomorrow.
Yep, so we've been back for less than a week, and we leave tomorrow for our next trip, and we're going to the West Coast.
Right, starting in Seattle and heading down all the way to Santa Fe, New Mexico. Stay tuned for more.
We have some big adventurous things coming up on this one, so it'll be fun. It'll definitely be
more action than our historic tour.
Yes. But I'm sure there'll be some plaques along the way for Wendy. All right, thank you.
Thanks.